Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday morning to you all. Hope everyone is doing awesome out there this morning and having a fantastic start to your day and a great beginning to your weekend out there. Here to bring you the latest on what's going to happen weather-wise for your Saturday, and this video is going to be jam-packed of information. We're going to talk about what's going to happen weather-wise for today, as there is an enhanced risk for certain sections of the high plains and just the plains in general. We do have an elevated risk of strong to damaging winds and very large hail, so we'll get very detailed on that. We'll break down Colorado, Kansas, even Missouri. I do think we'll just this area of the country is definitely going to run a higher risk of severe weather, so we'll zoom into that area, get very detailed for you folks, and talk about what's really driving this, and then we'll break down the rest of the lower 48, get everybody covered here, and then we're going to give you a very detailed update on the tropics. I mean, even more detailed than what we've been doing over the last week. I do think confidence is increasing somewhat, that we're just going to, at minimum, have a lot of tropical moisture in the Gulf of Mexico, and I really do think Florida, there could be a dangerous situation with flash flooding that develops in Florida sometime next week, especially as we get to the later portion of the week. And I even think that, there's a little bit higher of a chance of something developing down here. I'm not talking about a hurricane. The first name storm is the A name, obviously. It's Alberto. But I'm saying there's definitely a solid outside chance that we get a tropical storm out of this, or at least a depression. And I'll talk about why and when we break down the tropics. So there's a timestamp up for that. We're going to get very detailed, spend at least several minutes on that. So definitely jump to that if you just want the update on the tropics. It's there, that timestamp's there to help you folks out, just to jump ahead to certain portions of the video that you want to watch. Don't blame you one bit. I know not everybody has all the time in the world to watch a 30 to 45 minute weather video. I get it, but this is the best way that I flow, when I just talk and just get very detailed with you guys like I like to do. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and I appreciate that people continue to tune in during the slower times. I really do. When it gets slow like this, I would consider summer one of the slower times with weather YouTube. But when it gets slow like this, the people who continue to watch, regardless of how active it is, you guys are truly the core of the channel, and I really appreciate that. But if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling. So, leftover energy from last night. Man, some storm chasers got some incredible footage of just these supercells, this cloud structure. It just looked like UFOs out there. And it was pretty wild stuff out there in the plains yesterday. But the rest of this energy's trailed off into Missouri. We're dealing with a lot of heavy rain. The southern portion of this and southern Missouri kind of starting to ooze down to northern Arkansas. Could be some lightning and thunder with this, more so storm action as opposed to just heavy rain. The further north you get into Missouri, though, certainly the more of this is just heavy rain. A lot of rain up here in the upper Midwest, northern Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Scattered rains across the high plains. We got a bit of a spin. I wouldn't even say a bit. It's a pretty large spin up here, affecting areas of Quebec, Ontario, and then areas of the interior Northeast New England region is getting some rain off this. So we're definitely waking up to a soggy Saturday morning for a lot of areas of the country for sure. So Southeast pretty quiet, Western U.S. pretty quiet. I will say down here in the southern tip of Florida, we're dealing with a lot of tropical moisture. And I honestly think this is already starting to build up for what's to come of next week. If you have not got much rain in Florida for a while, I know one area of Florida that says they have not got a lot of rain is like the Tampa Bay area. That's going to change pretty dramatically next week, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the video. But as far as watches, warnings, advisories, the entire southern half of Missouri under flood watches right now in a few counties, also in Kansas. I don't think this morning's rain is going to be the only rain you get. I think you'll get more opportunity for some storms, potentially strong to severe, maybe even a low-end tornado risk later on this afternoon and this evening, and I will zoom into Missouri to help you guys out. But the rest of the country, it's quiet. You don't see as many heat alerts out here in the Southwest. Still some lingering excessive heat warnings and heat advisories. It'll get very hot. Up into the southern plains today, Oklahoma, southern Kansas, certainly Texas. But as far as, alerts out here, a pretty quiet start to your morning. Now, the excessive rainfall outlook, this moderate risk is really for what's going on right now and then what could develop later on this afternoon and this evening. If you live in the moderate risk, which does include Springfield, at least a 40% chance of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance within 25 miles in a given location. The yellow is a 15% risk of that. The green, a 5% risk of that. Definitely a lot more rain on the way for these areas, as Kansas is not only going to get more rain, and Missouri, areas of eastern Colorado, but an opportunity for strong to severe storms. Could be some nasty storms too. Kind of similar setup as yesterday, but a little bit further south. Speaking of the Storm Prediction Center, an enhanced risk is now up, and we're going to really jump right into this severe weather event for today. So that's going to be typically when we have an enhanced risk or higher, we go right into breaking down the severe weather event for that given day, and that's what we'll do in this video. The reason we didn't do that yesterday is because they upgraded it to an enhanced risk after I made the video, but they already have the enhanced risk for today. This includes eastern Colorado and into western Kansas and slight risk surrounding it. Not a very large area, but I do want to note we do have a marginal risk extending all the way into the mid-Mississippi Valley region, northern Arkansas, the entire central and southern portion of Missouri, all the way just east of the Mississippi, all the way into western Kentucky, western Tennessee, and southern sections of Illinois. So listen, I will tell you this right at the dot. I do think there's an opportunity that this certain areas in this green gets upgraded to a slight risk. I really do. And I'll talk to you about why in this video. Some of these storms certainly look like they have a higher chance of producing severe weather than maybe what the marginal risk is kind of showing. But let's zoom into some of these states, right? We haven't done this in a while. But Colorado, we haven't zoomed into Colorado in a while like this, but it's really the entire eastern half of the state. I mean, Akron, Fort Morgan, down to Lyman. Not sure how y'all pronounce that. I know you guys have already corrected me in Colorado a couple times on this. But remember, if I don't repeat it over and over and over again, I don't retain it. So Burlington, Yads, Lamar, you guys, enhanced risk. So if you live out here in Colorado today, this outlook could tweak a little bit. I don't expect this to go to a moderate risk or anything like that. Enhanced risk could broaden, slight risk could broaden. But a slight risk is level 2 out of 5 for these other areas. And that Denver does have a marginal risk. And what is this driven off of? Well, we do have a 2% risk of a tornado in the green area within 25 miles in a given location. So this could bump up to a 5% risk. We saw that happen yesterday. And then the wind outlook in the red area, that's a 30% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. Yellow, 15% risk of that. And if you live in that black outline region right into here, that's a 10% risk of winds exceeding 75 miles per hour or higher. So and I'll show you the radar here in a second, I really do think we'll have just a line of storms capable of producing all hazards here in eastern and northeastern Colorado. But the hail outlook, we're probably going to get some big hail. We've already been slammed by nasty hailstorms out in eastern and northeastern Colorado this spring severe season. I don't think today's setup will be any different. I think that we'll have an opportunity for that once again. And the red area certainly is going to be the more highlighted region, 30% chance of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. And then the yellow is a 15% risk of that. And if you live in that black outline region, guys, that is a 10% risk of hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger. Now let's go over to Kansas. Kansas enhanced risk for Dodge City, Garden City, Pratt, level 3 out of 5. Yellow area is a slight risk, level 2 out of 5. Goodland, Hayes, Hutchinson, Liberal, you guys, slight risk. Marginal risk, Wichita over to Emporia, Coffeyville, Fort Scott, Pittsburgh. You guys have that marginal risk. It looks like Kansas City just north of that marginal risk area, but you certainly could get some storms today. What is this driven off of in Kansas? Well, there's a tornado risk. Sorry, let me get my words right. A 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. I will note this stretches all the way into Missouri, and I do think there will be an opportunity for some tornadoes in Missouri today. Just a very long, strung out 2% risk area that goes through this region. I think there'll be a boundary left over from the storms overnight from yesterday, and we will have that risk of tornadoes. And I do think we'll have an opportunity to bump up to a 5% risk somewhere. Wind outlook extends out of Colorado into western Kansas. 30% chance in the red area of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. The yellow area, a 15% risk, and if you live in the blackout line region, that is a 10% risk of winds exceeding 75 miles per hour or higher. You look at the hail outlook, this could increase for Kansas, but right now, as of 6:12 a.m. Eastern Time, 5:12 Central Time, so I'm doing this video a little bit earlier than I typically do, 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. So let's break down Colorado first, okay? So this morning, not a whole lot going on, maybe some showers out there. As we start to make our way into about, it's about lunchtime, some storms starting to move out of southeast Wyoming. Could get some strong to severe storms up in Cheyenne earlier in the day. And then these start to evolve a little bit into a stronger scenario as we get into about 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon. And your eyes immediately go to this right here, right? And I do think northeastern Colorado, and like I said, this could extend into further south in eastern Colorado, but the HRRR model likes northeastern Colorado the most. These storms will have the capability of producing very large hail, a tornado, not a very high tornado threat, but definitely damaging winds, as energy is basically surging on the upper portion of this ridge and then the southern flank of this trough. We call this a short wave, just embedded into the pattern. And this will just get the atmosphere going for some storms. And, by the time you get to about 4 or 5 p.m., these storms are starting to close in on the Kansas border here, Kansas-Colorado border. But the HRRR model really likes this area of Colorado up here. So, Akron, Lehman, Burlington, Sterling, Greeley, Fort Morgan, maybe all the way up to Julesburg too, but it really likes these areas right into here. And they continue, this thing really starts to kind of get that bowing structure to it, which normally means the damaging wind threat really increases. But what's wild is by the time you get to 6, 7 p.m., it looks like the severe weather threat could be about done for eastern Colorado. It could be. It's just this area of storms you got to watch out for. And you look at the updraft velocity swath, which indicates rotating updrafts and stronger updrafts, it really gets highlighted in that area of storms. This particular run of the HRRR model is showing. So this is where your tornado threat could be up here in northeastern Colorado, but there could be a higher tornado threat down here in southern eastern Colorado too, if that makes sense. So those highlighted vibrant colors, watch out for a tornado. I can guarantee you, if you follow Storm Chasers with their live feeds, which many of y'all do, there's going to be a lot of storm chasers probably starting off, no doubt about it, in northeast Colorado. And it's a very beautiful area of the country, very flat. And if you're not familiar with your geography or anything like that, Colorado is not all mountains for sure. The entire eastern half of Colorado is just a high plain, and it's very flat. It's basically where the plains meet the Rockies. So that's how it is in eastern Colorado. And definitely just be aware of these storms if you live up here. If you're tuning in, let me know. But if you look at the potential winds with this, look at the wind swath, and we'll go to 07Z, and we'll take it all the way through. Look at this. Guys, in those areas, that is 70, 80 mile per hour wind gust potential, has the potential to be there, and it really likes this area of eastern Colorado, especially northeastern Colorado, guys. So if you live up here, damaging wind gusts with this is likely, large hail also. So we look at our friends here in Kansas. These will move in from the west just about, and by the time we start to get to about, I would say 5 p.m., they are already knocking on the doorstep of the Kansas state line. They start to move through Goodland. Goodland, I would really watch out this afternoon, this evening. This line of storms could mean some big-time business for you folks. Damaging winds, large hail, isolated tornado risk. If any storm tries to get discreet, the tornado risk is going to go up. Colby getting hit by these storms. These continue to make their way through. And let's see if we can look at some. Goodland, Colby. These storms have an opportunity to really get going down here. I'm getting my things all mixed up here. Down here to Dodge City too. So this is around 8 to 9 p.m. Strong to severe storms. Definitely moving through western Kansas, producing the opportunity for all hazards, especially the southern extent of this storm. You want to watch out for a higher tornado risk. Further north you get, the more this is just kind of a linear thing. But that southern extent of these storms will have a better thermodynamic environment to feed off of. So there will be, I would watch out Dodge City, a little bit of a tornado risk later on this evening. But these just areas of storms will continue to surge across Kansas. By the time you're about 11 p.m., midnight tonight, you got a nasty line of storms right in the middle of the state potentially. Starting to knock on the doorstep of like Hutchinson, Salina could potentially get hit pretty good here. And then by the time we are getting into 2 a.m., Kansas City getting hit by some bad weather. And then it gets this, but there's basically an extension of these storms from Kansas into Missouri at this point. And then at this time, we're basically getting into the wee hours of the morning, and I think things begin to calm down. But definitely a stormy night across western to central, all the way into eastern Kansas eventually. So if you live out here, expect pretty decent chance of some storms. And you look at the updraft Felicity swath indicating rotation with these storms, and here it comes moving out of Colorado into western Kansas. And I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, right, to see where the line of storms is moving through. This particular run of the HRRR model, this could trend a little bit further south. It very well could. But if you live in these areas, this is what the model's saying, hey, a little bit better of a chance of an isolated spin up. I definitely think these storms will at least be producing a lot of broad rotation. That doesn't mean it's going to drop a tornado. It just means there's an opportunity there. There'll be just enough kind of push in the atmosphere, spinning the atmosphere for a tornado. So I wouldn't be surprised the day we get it. We get a little bump up to a 2 to a 5% risk in some of these areas. And damaging winds, very large hail is certainly possible in Kansas also, especially the western half of Kansas. And if you look at the winds with this, make sure we don't already have that up. The winds will be something serious with this too, guys. Kind of back it up and we'll look at this. Here it comes out of Colorado. Yeah, I mean, look at that. Damaging wind swath right through, starting in kind of western Kansas, sort of drifts into central Kansas and starts to affect, I would say the further east it gets, the further south it starts to affect areas in southern Kansas. But I do think I would say the outlook is going to rise, go up another category, a little bit further into Kansas, eventually maybe into Missouri. I just think we're going to have an increased damaging wind threat a little bit further east into Kansas. And I mean, check this out. Swath of 60 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts are possible throughout these sections of Kansas. Could be a little bit further north and south of what this is showing. Large hail with this also. So be aware of this if you live in the state of Kansas today. Now, my friends here in Missouri, just a marginal risk. You're dealing with a lot of rain this morning. This will eventually clear out. We'll get a little bit of a clearing later on this afternoon. You'll think, hey, we're done with the storms. But, we start to get to about 7 p.m., 8 p.m., and look at this storm firing up well north of Springfield. Looks like almost like a supercell, right? And then we get into 9 p.m., and it really looks like a supercell. I want to watch out for any leftover boundaries in southern Missouri this evening. We get a storm that fires up, I really think we have an opportunity to get a bump up to a slight risk in Missouri for later on this evening. So be aware of the storms that fire up and watch how they become a lot more widespread. And this is when a flooding threat could emerge. Look at this storm right here, a little bit of a hook on it. All right, this is in, the southern half of Missouri here. Just, if you live in this area of Missouri, definitely be aware. Definitely kind of like between Springfield, what was that city called? Lebanon, I think, and Columbia, Missouri. You guys, I definitely think there's going to be kind of an avenue, an area of more heightened risk of strong to severe storms. 11 p.m., midnight, flooding risk with this too, no doubt about it. And these will kind of run over the same areas, and then eventually they will ooze into like southern Illinois. I mean, this is like 3 o'clock in the morning, like gets into like western Kentucky. And then we'll just continue to get more showers and storms in this region. So, we look at the updraft Felicity swath with this, and it really picks up on that supercell I just talked about just north of Springfield, and then just picks up on all the other convection all the way through tomorrow morning. I would say there's a little bit more, even though there's just a 2% risk across this entire region, I would say there's a little bit, in Mitch's opinion, a little bit more of a higher risk of a tornado right here in Missouri for later on this evening. So just be aware of that. I think that like I said, I think they'll make adjustments. I really do, to some of these outlooks on the next update here in about 2 hours. Rainfall between now, and we're just going to take it all the way through about late Sunday. I think certain areas in here could get some big flooding issues later on tonight. But another few inches of rain is possible across the southern half of Missouri. We'll just say that. Central to southern Missouri, few inches of rain is likely in this area. So that's an update on the flooding and severe weather risk across the plains. Let's just talk about the rest of the country here, and then we'll get into our update on the tropics. But today across the southeast, a nice, beautiful, warm day. But for a lot of areas, you got a lot of dry air in place. So low humidity, not too bad at all. We'll continue to get tropical downpours in the southern tip of Florida. We're going to get an area of rain that continues to kind of head out of Missouri, move into like southern Illinois, southern Indiana. This is not what happens tonight. This is the leftovers of what's going on right now. So we'll deal with some showers across the western half of Kentucky. These will eventually kind of begin to weaken, but we continue to have an opportunity for some showers across Kentucky, maybe the northern counties of Tennessee throughout the afternoon hours. And you see all the downpours and the summer storms dancing around down here in Florida. These could produce a lot of rain, frequent lightning, gusty winds, some downbursts, very possible. And eventually we start to get into tonight. There's all that storm action in Missouri you see on the corner of your screen. But the majority of the southeast, nice weather. Not a whole lot going on. It's just what happens a little bit later tonight. For example, even Nashville, you guys could get some storms waking up tomorrow morning as they're starting to move in from your northwest here. We definitely need to watch out for these storms here. And in fact, I'm actually just going to take a closer look at this on the fly, honestly. I was not expecting to do this, but let's check it out here. Here. And just a closer look at these storms that can make their way into Tennessee tonight. Don't want to leave you guys hanging. And there's those storms right here. See how they're kind of starting to ooze into western Kentucky, Tennessee. This is like 4 o'clock in the morning. So if you live here in northwestern Tennessee, just northwest of Nashville, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning tomorrow morning, you're going to be woken up to some storms. But I do think they'll be weakening, kind of in the weakening stages. But they'll make it all the way to the Cumberland Plateau tomorrow morning. So just be aware of that. Just want to show you all a closer look at that. Now the Northeast today, we're going to be dealing with these pesky downpours, showers, thunderstorms are very possible. Some of these could produce some small hail up here. Really anywhere in Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, also higher chance in Maine. This is midday. Check out all these numerous showers and storms across the entire state of Maine, especially the northern half of Vermont and New Hampshire, maybe as far south as like the Adirondacks of New York. And then this will kind of, mellow out with the loss of daytime heating. And then as we get deeper into the evening to the overnight hours, some showers will begin to overspread southern Ontario into northern Ohio, eventually into New York State, and then basically take over a lot of the western half of New York, even northwestern PA, northern PA. After midnight tonight, we'll just be dealing with a good solid soaking of light to moderate rain, and we'll wake up tomorrow morning to certainly another kind of damp, rainy start, but probably for areas a little bit further south. So I definitely think Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, areas of Connecticut, eastern New York, southern areas of Maine will wake up to a soggy start for your Sunday morning. Definitely we'll pick up some rain up here. You guys have had a rainy spring. Now the south central U.S., we've covered just about everything with this, and I actually have to back this up a little bit. This morning, slow start. We get into this afternoon. There's all that action moving out of Colorado into Kansas. I will mention Oklahoma, the panhandle of Oklahoma, the panhandle of Texas, western Texas could get some storms for sure. There's those supercells dancing around potentially here in central Missouri, southern Missouri. There's the main area of storms right here and right here. Okay, we already broke down Kansas. Man, that was a mean itch on my head there. And then we keep this going. Some showers could make their way into northern Oklahoma later tonight. But I would say most of the southern plains is quiet until you get into Colorado, Kansas, and Missouri. Oklahoma, Arkansas points south, Texas, just very hot, but not much storm action expected today. North central U.S., we got this area of rain that's going to cruise through this morning through the rest of Wisconsin, areas of the UP of Michigan, northern lower Michigan. Could get some storms down here in northern Illinois. So if you live in Rockford, just northern Illinois in general, more heightened risk of storms in this area of the country. So be aware of that. These could cruise all the way into northwestern Indiana. Could get some scattered downpours across southern lower Michigan, northern Indiana, all the way into northern Ohio later on this evening. And then we continue to make our way into the overnight hours. Some showers could drift all the way down into what the western UP here, the eastern UP, I'm sorry. And then we get into tomorrow morning, just maybe some showers around in northern Minnesota, the UP of Michigan. But that's pretty much it for this area of the country. The western U.S., there will be an opportunity for some storms across kind of some of the same similar regions that we covered yesterday. Nevada, Utah, definitely Colorado, which we've already talked about. There is a marginal risk of severe weather in Northern California. You don't really see much pop up here, but there is a marginal risk. Let's go back and make sure I got this right here. Yeah, marginal risk in Northern California, Southern Oregon today. So definitely be aware of that. It's not showing much popping up, but there is some energy that you barely can see because of the high elevations of the mountains on the tropical tidbits here. But there is energy here cruising across areas of the western U.S. Just be aware if you live in Southern Oregon, Northern California. You just can't see really what's going on very well out here. Temperatures today, the further south you get, basically the warmer you get. And the further north you get, the more, cooler, more comfortable area you get. Northeast, just 60s, some 70s today. Southeast, warm, downright hot, especially when you get into Florida with high humidity. But, once you get a little bit further north into maybe Georgia, the Carolinas, Tennessee, other areas also that I didn't mention, but, it's hot, but it's more of a drier heat. Dew points only in the 60s. Some areas just in the 50s. We're waking up to a nice low 60s, low humidity morning here in central South Carolina. Brutally hot across the central and southern plains. More pleasant up here in the north central U.S. There's those hot temperatures. I mean, they're trying to say you're going to get into over 105 degrees in Oklahoma today. So we'll see if that actually happens. But, man, y'all just get some very crazy weather in the southern plains. I mean, you get the Arctic cold fronts in the winter. It's just been hotter than all get out the last few summers. The bad storms. So, if you like crazy weather, go to the southern central plains for sure. But very hot once again in the southwest. Not as hot as it's been, but it's definitely going to be hot again. But like I said, not near as hot as what it's been. So the storm prediction outlook here. Tomorrow, another risk of strong to severe storms. Not a very high risk. This could upgrade though. But you notice that the risk of thunderstorms gets reintroduced across areas of the Mid-South and the Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast. Marginal risk up here in the Rockies too, in the valley regions. But not a big deal for tomorrow. For our Monday, a risk of severe weather in the high plains and then the southern high plains. General risk of thunderstorms everywhere else. Level 1 out of 5 in the dark green. And I do want to mention, day 4, nothing, right? Predictability too low. But day 5, they are already confident enough on a north central high plains kind of severe weather setup. Slight risk, level 2 out of 5, already for next Wednesday. So confidence is certainly increasing for severe weather up here. And this is the time of the year for it. June is even into July. July it gets more so into Canada, but June's a big time of the year for the high plains, the north central U.S. as far as severe weather. And, it looks like that you're probably going to have a big shortwave trough that moves through this region. So we'll discuss this and dissect this a little bit more here in the coming days for sure. So an update on the tropics. So we're going to spend some time on this. Listen, I mean, this morning there's nothing. We don't have anything. This is the latest update. I could see this changing though in the next few days. It says tropical cyclone activity is not expected during the next 7 days. So we don't have any outlook to discuss on the actual experts National Hurricane Center outlook here. But let's compare some guidance here, and let's see if we have the 06 GFS. It only goes out to 108 hours. So let's go all the way to about 108 hours on the latest GFS, and then we'll have to go to the overnight GFS because it hasn't finished running here. So we might get a couple extra panels while we're doing this. But let's start off from Monday morning, guys. The only thing that we can really say is there's a lot of tropical moisture down here in the Western Caribbean, south of Cuba, east of the Yucatan Peninsula. A bunch of greens, even some splotches of yellow. It just means there's moisture down here, right? And we keep this going. You see how this area of kind of green begins to surge north? A lot of heavy rains across western Cuba, starting to get into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. We continue to move this, and we're getting into Tuesday morning at this point, right? I want you guys to note there's a trough in place over the eastern U.S. at this point. This is kind of shutting off any moisture into the eastern U.S. But I don't think this will hang around too long. At the same time, you got a lot of moisture off the coast of the southeast too. I want you guys to see that also and notice that. But we start to get into, at this point, Wednesday morning, starting to get a lot of heavy tropical downpours, just scattered storms. Tropical rains is what we should call it here. Bahamas, Cuba, southern, I would say it's more widespread than what this is showing across Florida. And I think really it's when we get into Tuesday, Wednesday, really Wednesday onward is when it's game on for a ton of rain in Florida. Okay? And then we start to get into Thursday. And this is as far out as we can go. And then we're actually gonna switch it to the OOZ. But we look at actually Wednesday evening. You see this line here, and it's starting to kind of buckle like this. This tells me that you're trying to get some sort of dominant piece of energy, some sort of maybe weak low pressure here to form. A lot of this moisture, just like it is with all these weaker tropical systems, is on the right side. And I'm not calling this a tropical system yet. Could be a developing one. But this is Wednesday evening, and this is as far out as we can go. We're going to have to switch it to the O6Z and kind of keep this going. And it has that same similar look, right? A little bit more intense with the colors, with the yellows and oranges and reds here. So we're going to take it to Thursday morning. Pops up that at low pressure, right? 1,005 millibar low. That doesn't mean we have Tropical Storm Alberto out there. Just means we need to watch. And then we get into Friday. I think this thing's kind of stuck down here in the Gulf of Mexico due to steering currents. And we'll talk more on that in the coming days. But, we look at Thursday evening. Look at this. The entire state of Florida getting slammed by heavy tropical rain. Okay, and then we get into Friday morning. Develops that low pressure. It's 1,000 millibar low pressure. Is it going to go sub 1,000? But look at all this heavy rain on the eastern coast, especially. Western coast of Florida, Florida Keys. And man, there it is, 999 millibar low next Friday evening. Not saying that's going to happen. We got to watch. But look at all the rain getting pushed into Georgia now, South Carolina. And finally, this kind of tries to move into the southeast. But some of the models keep wanting to develop something a little bit further west in the Gulf of Mexico too. So we certainly need to watch this, guys. Because not only a lot of heavy rain, right? I think there's an opportunity for some tropical development with this. European. What about this? So this is, as we know, if you've been tuned in for a while, you know that the European has not been as aggressive as the GFS, which we don't expect it to. The European is kind of like your wise grandpa. It's not gonna hang out with the young whippersnappers like the GFS and stuff like that. It is old. It's wise. I don't know if it's really any older than the GFS, but it's just going to be, on average, the European is the king. We call it King Euro. It's the more dominant model. Doesn't mean it always wins. It's just on average the best model, in my opinion. But we get into Monday morning. There it is. You see all that green down there in the Caribbean, the Southern Gulf. And then we start to get into Tuesday morning. What I want you to notice is, with the trough digging down here in the eastern U.S., there could be energy that kind of pops off the trough here and gets off the coast of the southeast. You want to watch a lot of tropical moisture, out over the Gulf Stream here off the coast of the southeast too. That's something to watch. Dances around low pressure here. But look at this blob of energy down here on Tuesday. Then we get into Wednesday. Not as crazy looking as the GFS, but one thing I want you to note is that's definitely an obvious chunk of moisture here in the Gulf of Mexico now, right? And then we start to get into a Thursday, still there, just not as crazy and as aggressive looking as a GFS. I will tell you the European is always going to have a conservative bias with the tropics from what I've noticed. But at this point, you got a lot of tropical moisture basically in the eastern half of the Gulf of Mexico. Okay? And eventually, even the European says, hey, here's a ton of rain for Florida. And even not just Florida, guys, but if you live, the closer you live south in these Gulf states like Mississippi, Alabama, and even Georgia, which I know doesn't obviously have a border to the Gulf of Mexico, but you get what I'm saying. The more rain you have an opportunity to pick up, especially the later half of next week. And one thing to note here is, I mean, as we start to get into like next Friday, I want you to note, look at these isobars here trying to like bend here. This tells me that you're trying to develop something here. This surge of moisture really on the right quadrant of something trying to develop into here. It's a little bit further west. The European has definitely been more west than the GFS. This would bring more rain further west, more so maybe the panhandle of Florida. But this continues, and it looks like it tries to do something here. And then slingshots a lot of moisture into the Gulf states in the Mid-South. And if we kind of look at it, I'm going to do this on the fly here. We'll look at the 850 Vort Max here, see if we can see anything really consolidating. And we really look at the wind barbs here, guys. Well, I mean, look at this little spin right here. But let's focus on the Gulf of Mexico. All right. But I want you to notice here, and it's very hard to tell. Very, very, very. There it is. There it is. Right there. So next Thursday, see how it's very weak flow. You're going to have to look very hard, guys. But you see this wind barb right here, right here. Basically, this wind barb. Let's see if I can actually just. No, it won't let me, guys. But you see this wind barb, how it's pointing to the south. This one barely pointing to the east. Winds are coming out the south, the east, coming out the north, coming out the northwest, coming out the west. So basically, I'll move this cursor out in a way that you can see it. And I don't have. Let's see if we can do it on the fly here. I'm doing a lot of stuff on the fly this morning. Let's move this over here. No, I do not want to update it. I like it the way it is, okay? But if you notice right here, there is no, leave me alone. There is a little bit of a spin going on right here off the euro, okay? You just look at little stuff like this, the stuff that you look at. There could be something here, and this is probably your overnight European run was probably your most aggressive run as far as developing tropical activity, in my opinion. Now you certainly look at the GFS. It's definitely a lot more aggressive. There it is. I mean, you see the vibrant colors here, trying to develop an all-out weak tropical system with this. But even the European starting to show stuff now. Now, if we look at the GFS ensemble, then the highlighted area, look how vibrant it gets. And what you're looking at here, GFS ensemble has 21 members, and basically on this particular thing that Levi from Tropical Tidbits created, it basically tries to throw all the low pressures on one single model output, which is what this is. So, the more yellow colors you see here, right in here, the more higher of a chance of tropical development. Let's just leave it at that. But as we start to get into midway next week, you notice you're starting to see the vibrant colors in here, but you're not seeing a lot of numbers. These numbers like 03 right here in the Caribbean, that stands for 1,003 millibar low pressure. It's really once this gets kind of more so in the Gulf of Mexico and then gets all the way to next Friday morning. Look how this really starts to show a highlighted area of tropical development here. And then look how it just explodes here into the Gulf of Mexico. So this is really, as of right now, my confidence is increasing in something developing. I mean, I'm already saying, hey, I'm stamping down. We're going to get tropical moisture, no doubt about it. Several inches of rain at minimum across like Florida. But as far as something actually developing into Alberto, I think my confidence is increasing, but I'm still not team saying it's going to happen. But man, you get, about 7 to 8 days out. I mean, it's a pretty solid signal in the Gulf of Mexico, guys. It really is. So, and then you look at the European ensemble, even this is starting to increase. Right? There it is. Bang. A lot more scattered members. This makes up, 51 members, I believe. Scattered members. But, I mean, it is a lot more highlighted of a signal now. For sure. It's a little bit further west. A little bit further west in the Gulf of Mexico. But, man, I mean, that's a strengthening signal now. So, you go back to the GFS, and let's go back to the 06Z, see if we've gotten any more runs out of this. And, man, look at the latest GFS. GFS still showing that scenario of just an all-out tropical system at minimum of depression. So, I would just watch out for this. And this is one thing I like to look at when we get a little bit closer, and we're starting to get just a tad bit closer. Between now and the next 10 days, this is the chances of tropical depression development. You got tropical wave, depression, storm, hurricane, and go up categories. All right. You notice on this, it likes the idea of further into the central and western Gulf of Mexico. The European ensemble does, for a chance of tropical depression development. Now, if you're wondering what the color code is down here, once you get to that, this color right in here, when you want to call this turquoise, some sort of form of muted blue or green here, it's around, I would say over here is a 20 to 30% chance, and this is like a 30 to 40% chance. So we certainly, confidence is increasing, I would say. And if you look at the sea surface temperatures, guys, this is in Celsius. You're seeing 28, 29, 30 degrees Celsius. That's equivalent to the mid to low 80s in Fahrenheit. So the Gulf of Mexico is already a degree to as much as, half a degree to as much as 2.5 degrees above average out here in Fahrenheit for this time of the year. So the Gulf of Mexico is warm enough for tropical development. What about the upper wind pattern? Well, we'll dissect that a little bit more when we get a little bit closer. But as far as impacts, we have no idea. What we do have a pretty solid idea on, and we'll start this off from Monday midday, June 10th, is there is a ton of rain coming for Florida. This is the blend of all models, and we're just going to go out 1 week. In fact, let's go out all the way into next Sunday morning, June the 16th. Not this Sunday morning, next Sunday morning. From Orlando Point south, guys, the opportunity is there for a half a foot to a foot of rain. Tons of rain. What I want to watch out for is if the blend of all models begins to shift some of this rain a little bit further west. For example, let's look at the deep south with this. All right, so you notice between now and the next 9 days, not a whole lot of rain across, the mid-south. You start to hug the Gulf Coast down here, that's when you start to get into some more rain, but nothing huge. But the further you get down the Florida, the panhandle of Florida, a lot of rain. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Hope that helps. I'm going to try to, if models really start to really grow in confidence, we're going to have a bigger video sometime this weekend on this, and it would probably be for Sunday evening. Just that would give us a whole entire weekend of model runs, and we'll really just zoom into the tropics. So stay tuned for that. We'll have to watch. That's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and I'll talk to you again soon.